I want to comment on this video from Mitchell K, who says why quiet quitting is the best thing Gen Z ever did. We hit a recession. Guess who's the first person to get fired? The quiet quitters. Just gotta say it. These last few years screwed with people's minds. Look at what's happening now. A lot of people are now getting laid off. Oh my gosh, it's not some big conspiracy here. That's silly.
Man, when I started my YouTube channel 2 years ago, never once did I think that Graham Stephan was going to be reacting to my content or that I would be reacting to Graham Stephan reacting to my content. But recently, Graham Stephan reacted to one of my videos that went viral talking about quiet quitting, kind of a broader economic workplace trend. And he actually got heated at a few points. So I made Graham Stephan mad, the one person who never gets mad. So let's get into it.
Welcome back to the Graham Stephan Show. So there are a lot of stereotypes with younger people, with younger generations. So whether that be they're spoiled, entitled, lazy, self-centered, egotistical, and apparently now they're quitters. I want to comment on this video from Mitchell K, who says why quiet quitting is the best thing Gen Z ever did.
Yo, I just gotta say, it's such a weird day waking up and just watching a video from one of your favorite YouTubers and not even knowing that it's going to be you in the video that he's reacting to. What a weird way to start my day, but let me give you two scenarios. In scenario one, you have Tom. Now, Tom has worked at a company for 10 years now. He comes in 30 minutes early and he leaves an hour late. The last 4 years, he's been really trying to push himself to prove that he's management material.
Sounds like Tom honestly is not doing that great of a job, really emphasizing the amount of work he puts into his superiors. And some jobs, you just have to come to realize that that sort of work is not going to be valued. You are simply a cog in the system. You are to show up, do your job, leave, look like you're busy, give the illusion that you're doing a lot throughout the day, and they don't care. He could be working an extra 8 hours every single day, unpaid, and would go completely unrecognized. Working an extra hour and a half every single day doing other people's work, you want to make sure there's at least a payoff for that. It's not going wasted.
I think Graham really wanted to get that point off his chest. He kind of jumped in quick here. But I actually agree with Graham. There are a lot of those jobs where you are a cog in the machine. And it is really up to you to decipher, is this worthwhile for me or is this something that I should leave? There are some of those jobs where you're a cog in the machine, but it pays well enough that, look, maybe you should stay to save up that money. Maybe they're teaching you some good skills, even though it's like, look, be brainless and don't speak. If you can pick up a few skills, stay there for a year, leverage it into another career, why not, right? I actually agree with Graham on that first point.
Now, just last year, Tom's manager announced that he was going to be retiring. And for the last year, Tom has really been hoping that he would get that promotion. But what happened is when Tom's manager quit, the owner of the company brought in a manager from outside, from a different company, to come manage here.
Now here's the thing though, sometimes you'll get so good at your job that they don't want to move you up because who's going to replace your job? Unfortunately, that's just the way a lot of these big corporate structures work. Now I do want to say though, overall in the first minute, he's making a lot of generalizations here. Not every company is like this. Certainly some of the larger companies are. It's a bit more corporate. It's a bit more stigmatized to move up at such quick levels here. It's a bit more of a, climb the corporate ladder, and it's a bit BS, okay? If anyone's gonna call that for what it is, it's me. I understand. It's a total waste of time. But
so, as generalized as that example might be, that comes from my real life experience, right? Like real life things that I've observed. And if you look at the views on that quiet quitting video, the millions it got, and you look at the comment section as well, the hundreds of thousands of comments, it's all people agreeing that they've had very similar lived experiences. So even if it's generalized, I think it's fair to say that a lot of times it is true, or a lot of times this is fairly close to reality. But nonetheless, it feels good to see someone like Graham, who's successful, call it out for what it is, right? A lot of these jobs that are kind of, not going to promote from within, they're going to treat their people like crap. It's nice to see somebody who's successful really call that out.
In scenario two, we have Tim. He likes to keep things moving, so he switches jobs every 2 years. Every 2 years when Tim switches jobs, he gets a significant pay bump, typically about 10% every 2 years.
This is very, very, very true. Here's the thing, job hoppers are rewarded very well. It's shown that on average, if you were to switch a job every other year, so about every 2 to 3 years, you get a new career, basically use your position to get something even better, you're going to make, on average, over the long term, 50% more than the person who just stays at the same company and gets pay raises. Now, you don't want to do it too quick because then companies will see that, oh, you're only working with these places like 3 months and then quitting, and that's pretty bad. But 2 to 3 years is about the sweet spot.
You heard it from Graham, guys. Corporate loyalty is dead. You got to swap jobs every 2 years if you want to really increase your earning potential. Corporations are not paying you to stay like they used to.
Quiet quitting in its simplest terms refers to meeting the minimum requirements of your job, not going beyond that. You're checking all of the boxes in your job description, but you're not going that extra mile. You're working your 40 hours a week, but not a minute more. People have also referred to quiet quitting as coasting, acting your wage, or just working.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing, though. They're going to be in for a rude awakening. If we hit a recession, guess who's the first person to get fired?
Oh,
the
come
quiet
on.
quitters. Just gotta say it, okay? I think these last few years screwed with people's minds when it was, the employees who had the upper hand, when they could just say, nope, I'm leaving this company so I could work for another company remotely that pays me 50% more. That's not necessarily real life. Look at what's happening now. A lot of people are now getting laid off. They're not getting the same free money that was prevalent just like 2 years ago because of low interest rates. These companies were flush with cash. They were trying to grow by any means necessary, and they were hiring anybody they could, paying way over market rate just to get employees because they had this money to burn. But in the event that turns, and all of a sudden employees still don't have the same options as they once did, well, guess what? These quiet quitters are going to be the first ones to get let go. So it's a bit of a balancing act between, acting your wage, but also making sure you stay employed and you have the leverage to then use that for a better career with maybe more stability.
So Graham basically says if a recession hits, quiet quitters are going to be the first ones on the chopping block. Let me just remind you, though, what the definition of quiet quitting is. It's somebody who comes in and does what they're supposed to, and they leave. It's somebody who's not going above, but they're also not falling below what they're supposed to do. So I have to look at that and go, hey, if a recession hits and they're getting rid of you for doing what you're supposed to do, that's a bigger tell of the company's health than sort of your own workplace performance. And I get it, right? Nobody wants to lose a job, but I also have to look at it and go, this video was made about Gen Z. Here's what makes Gen Z unique. We have nothing to lose. Oh no, we're gonna lose our job. We're gonna have to move back in with our parents or roommates or friends. Oh wait, that's what we already do. That's where most of us are at. Oh no, if we lose our good paying job, we're gonna have to take a job that pays minimum wage or barely above. Well, guess what? That's where a lot of Gen Z is at, right? A lot of Gen Z has been to college. This has been a popular trend online. They've been to school and they're still only getting paid just over minimum wage. So it's like, what do the kids really have to lose? If you haven't given them any skin in the game, how can you expect to have leverage over Gen Z? How can you expect them to work so hard if they have nothing that actually tethers them to doing good work or to wanting to keep a job? And if I'm being honest, I think there's a large chunk of Gen Z that would actually prefer if a recession hit for the reason that maybe housing prices would become more affordable. Just a thought.
After COVID hit, I saw a lot of my best coworkers leave, and suddenly the expectations just kept getting bigger and bigger on remaining staff, to the point where you would have one person doing what used to be two people's jobs. And it's not like our pay magically increased either. We were getting paid pretty much the same, but we were expected to do twice the work.
That is a huge problem. Now, he brings up a great point. What ended up happening, again, COVID skewed everything. People don't have a true understanding right now. If you've only been in the job market for 2 to 3 years, that's not normal. None of it is normal. And what ended up happening in COVID, everything shut down and suddenly people were making more money getting stimulus checks, staying home than they did from working. So a lot of those employees, if you're making under, let's say, $4 or $5 grand a month, you may as well just stay home, make more money, and not have to work. Everyone else who is working, all of a sudden there's a worker shortage. So the employers say, well, you got to pick up the slack here. We don't necessarily have the budget to pay you more, but now you need to do the job of 1.5 people because we're short-staffed. You got to take over. We really appreciate it, but you're not compensated 50% more because of that. Businesses then saw that as a way as, wait a second, we could get just as much done paying one person to do the job of two. And people will put up with it because they want the job. They want to make sure they keep the job when, COVID ends, they're still employed. And they basically don't want to be without a job and all of a sudden, things are going south. So that's a problem on the business perspective. It's a problem on the employee perspective. And sometimes you just got to work with the hand you're dealt. And that is one of them where probably you have to put up with doing the job 1.5 to 2 for a little bit, but then hopefully leverage that into something else that you will get paid what you were worth.
I actually have a little story about that, about kind of using COVID or kind of that hard time period to try and help out a company that I worked for. Got their acquisition cost down by 90% for employees during that time. They were spending about $150 to acquire employees. Got it down to about a $15 acquisition cost to get new employees into a business. And I did leverage it to grow within that company, but ultimately got screwed, was told I would get paid X amount, didn't get paid X amount. bunch of broken promises. I actually made a video on it a few months ago. I never posted it on my channel, but if you guys would like to see that kind of behind the scenes of quitting my last job, just say so below. I'd be happy to post it.
I've heard a lot of older people and heads of companies refer to quiet quitters as lazy. And to a degree, I do understand and appreciate that perspective. I don't think it's a great thing if broad swaths of people are just mentally checking out from their jobs.
Sometimes, though, I believe the employers have to do better to keep their employees happy, stimulated, interested in their work, and rewarded appropriately. I think, again, it's a fine balance between overpaying someone for a position, but making sure you keep the good people employed and engaged with their work. You don't want people checking out. If people are checking out in their work, I think it's really time to evaluate what's going wrong, why they're checking out. Is it the person? Is it the type of work? Is the work lacking something? Are you doing something as the employer? I tend to think the employer also takes a big chunk of responsibility in this one.
I'd like to applaud you. I couldn't agree more, man. I think, you know, to a large degree, employers, hey, you guys are the ones that need help. You got to kind of work around Gen Z and understand what we're dealing with as a generation if you want the best quality talent from this generation. And I think a lot of times the older generations who tend to be the employers love to point the fingers at the kids without actually understanding what we're going through. You guys are lazy. Gen Z is lazy. You guys are scared of work. You guys don't like to be loyal. You got to look at it though, right? What is Gen Z tied down to? Mortgages? No. Housing prices are too high. Okay. Do they have kids? No. A lot of them are waiting till they get a house, and having a kid's really expensive. Well, man, they don't have kids to kind of tether them down and hold them to a job, hold them to a place, hold them sort of accountable. Okay, well, what about car payments? Yeah, some Gen Z does have expensive car payments, but at the same time, it's kind of like, why do I fear losing my car, or why would I even want a car if I can Uber everywhere and not have to worry about anything? I think you have to look at Gen Z and go, man, a lot of the things that older generations took for granted that would hold people to their jobs, Gen Z doesn't have that anymore. There's no way to really tether these people to their jobs. You have to think outside of the box. I almost want to say, if you want good Gen Z talent at all, you have to pay them enough money to actually own something. If somebody owns nothing, you have no leverage over them. Right? Why am I scared of getting fired? I don't have a big overhead and I can take any job and pivot and move. I almost think if people paid Gen Z more, Gen Z would be less likely to job hop because they would do things like get mortgages, have kids, get nice cars, right? And I really have to applaud Graham for saying this, man. You know, a lot of CEOs don't want to have that conversation, but hey, looking within sometimes is the way that you can actually grow, right? I think a lot of business owners are scared to admit, maybe we don't know how to motivate Gen Z.
Median home prices looked fairly reasonable in the US through the early 2000s, but after about 2003, you saw this huge spike where prices started to skyrocket. And yes, I get that houses have always been expensive, but this chart doesn't even tell the full story.
This is all the result, though, of low interest rates. Ever since the mid-1990s, interest rates have been on a steady trend downwards, and when interest rates go down, asset values go up because they become cheaper to finance. So if you're buying a house like that, that just skyrockets in price the lower interest rates go, and now we're at a point where people just expect interest rates are gonna go down again. They might not. I'm just saying.
Patrick Bet-David actually talks about zombie companies and how the United States has a real problem with these zombie companies. Basically companies that don't actually make profit, but because interest rates are so low, they can essentially borrow money forever. Well, when interest rates go up and it becomes expensive to borrow money, a lot of these companies are not going to survive. We're at this weird place where it's like, again, use a Patrick Bet-David metaphor. The US has been on steroids for so long, at some point we got to come off. And another conversation that I don't think a lot of people are ready for is when we print all of this money, when interest rates are so low and so much money is being created quickly, where does all of that money go? It goes from the bottom to the top. I'll give you an example. You got your $2,000 stimulus. Let's say you bought tires with it. Cool, you've got tires that are going to last you a year. All of these business owners are collecting money. It's going right back to the top. What can they do? They can buy real estate. They can buy real assets with all of that money that's being created quickly. Drives up the cost of living for average middle class people like us because they got all that money so quick. They were in position to basically collect that money by owning a business. It's not good when we print money so fast like this.
From the 1960s through the early 2000s, home prices were about 4 to 5 times more than median income. In 2022 though, home prices are about 8 times the median income.
Again, just keep in mind that all of a sudden in the late 90s, they started doing McMansions. They started building way more square footage. Now, yes, housing prices have also gone up, but I also think that's a lot to do with interest rates. Mortgage rates, go down, house prices go up, square footage is going up. There's a lot to it.
Now, Graham brings up some really good points here, which is if the average square footage of houses is going up, how can we expect the price not to go up as well? I have to look at it and ask the hard question, though, that I feel like a lot of people are avoiding. Why is it that nobody's creating affordable single family homes, right? Like cheaper houses that, yeah, they're not a lot of square footage, but it's something that starting out families could buy. That used to be a thing and it's not anymore. I don't know if it's like a lack of monetary incentive or what it is, but I want to ask the hard question. What do we do to get that? What do we do to get more affordable single family homes that are good starter homes, right? I know a bunch of folks in my age group, right, in their early 20s that we don't want a huge house. We really don't want all that responsibility yet, but we would like to build some equity. We'd like to get our foot into something, actually own something, not just be renting forever where the price goes up and you have no control. But it just seems like nobody wants to build those kinds of houses. I don't understand it. I'm genuinely asking.
If we look at the money printed since 1965 and compare it with median home prices, these graphs are almost identical. The more money the government prints, the more expensive homes get.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more money in circulation. Asset prices are skyrocketing higher.
I got Graham
it's
agreeing with me.
what we called the reverse crash.
That's crazy.
Basically, inflation causes asset prices to balloon so high that most people just get left behind if they're not invested. So that's why I think it's so important. Middle class, low class, upper, it doesn't matter. You gotta invest your money long-term in assets that are diversified across housing, equities, maybe some bonds, hold a little cash, a little bit of everything. So that way, if they print more money, you're in a good position to at least make some money.
I'm actually glad that Graham and I see eye to eye on this point. Owning assets is how you build wealth. I actually made a good amount of money during COVID just purchasing stocks at the bottom, when everybody was fearful, kind of rode it back up. There is something to be said for purchasing assets is how you build real wealth. The thing that I get a little bit frustrated about, though, is you look at probably what is the best asset to own in America historically. It's real estate. But as we've talked about, so much of Gen Z is priced out of real estate, right? And it's not a matter of, oh, we're drinking too much coffee. It's like, yo, even if I did nothing for fun, if I did nothing for me, I couldn't afford a house. So I have to look at it and go, yeah, we can afford things like bonds, stocks, maybe a little bit of gold, maybe a little bit of crypto. But it's frustrating because we're priced out of one of the best asset classes there is.
You hear stories about what companies were like during our grandparents' generation. They got things like pensions, good benefits. That's not a thing anymore. There's not that same level of loyalty that existed back then.
It's very interesting when it comes to this because there are two sides to this. I did a whole video about why the middle class is disappearing. One side says the middle class is straight up, they're making less money, they're doing worse, the middle class is shrinking. The other side says the middle class, when you adjust for all the government benefits, is actually doing better today than they were in the 1960s and the 1970s. And the middle class today is shrinking because more of the middle class is now upper class. They're making more money, and so they're able to afford more things. So it's a bit nuanced here.
Graham brings up an interesting kind of philosophical debate. But I have to look at this just as somebody who's living in Gen Z today and go, bro, what are you talking about, respectfully? Housing prices through the roof have increased. Healthcare costs through the roof have increased. Education costs through the roof have increased. And on top of that, the ROI is less if you're college educated today than if you were maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, right? So I have to look at this and go, what are we talking about? The government makes things cheaper? Where? Government subsidies, government help? Where? It seems like everything the government touches just becomes more expensive. Healthcare, through the roof, man, when they got involved. Education, student loans, it seems like when they got involved, through the roof, right? Housing, maybe that's a little bit of government, maybe that's not, but that's still through the roof. So I have to look at it and go, I don't think being middle class today is significantly easier. I think you get more perks in terms of technology and these little toys to keep you docile. But I think if you look at the macro, big, important things, it's getting more expensive. And I'll give you an example. At my last job, I was offered a healthcare plan through my employer. Do you want to take a guess at how much it cost me, a 26-year-old single male with no dependents in good health? $200 a month. And that's for crappy coverage, and my company paid for, I think, half or a little bit more than half. $200 a month, right? 26, good health, no dependents. So I went and I looked on healthcare.gov, right? They say, oh, the government wanted to make healthcare so affordable. So I said, okay, I'll put this to the test. I'll go on healthcare.gov and see what they've got. It was between $500 and $600 for the cheapest policy, even worse coverage on healthcare.gov. Again, 26-year-old male, good health, no dependents, nobody else on my plan, just me. No major health issues in the past. What are we talking about?
Don't tell me that companies can't afford to pay more, because when you look at corporate profits versus employee compensation over time, companies have been screwing us for the last 20 years. Corporate profits have just gone up and up, whereas our compensation, our wages, have mostly stayed stagnant.
Yeah, but that's also because of the internet. There's a lot of products with very low overhead with very high profit margins. I would say this is more because of efficiency. Now, yes, that technically means they'd have more money to spend back on their employees, but the internet really, again, skews things in such a way where overhead could be lowered, and I think a lot of jobs, frankly, could be outsourced at this point.
You know that I got to look at it through the Gen Z lens. This is the reason why I think Gen Z is kind of jaded, or maybe one of the contributing factors is, man, bigger labor pools that we're competing against. And on top of that, a lot of these business models are not necessarily making it so that we get paid more. In fact, it's making it so that there's fewer jobs available per company than maybe prior business models. Technology is being leveraged in a way that's maybe not optimal for the worker.
Take Kevin O'Leary, for example. This guy literally said that quiet quitting is worse than COVID.
If you walk in your interview and say, I only work from 9 to 5 and then I stop working, I can't wait to get you into my competitor. Help me find these people. This is like a virus. This is worse than COVID.
And Kevin O'Leary is always exaggerating that. But when you're looking to hire somebody, you do want someone who's going to give it their all.
Okay, to be fair, I don't hate Kevin O'Leary. I don't even dislike the guy. I've never met the guy before in my life. But I do have to say, this is not a good look, Kevin. I don't think this is how you want to represent yourself, right? You're talking about a virus that, regardless of how you feel about who profited off of maybe the pandemic or how it may have been politicized, it killed people for real. And you're talking about something that, has affected a lot of families negatively. And you're saying that worker burnout is more dangerous than this virus, or is worse than this virus that really killed family members? I don't know. To me, that just comes across as a little bit tone deaf and maybe a little bit greedy. And I just want to give them the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Like business owners that were going through COVID, there was a lot of balls in the air, a lot of stress. Maybe he was speaking from a position of stress, but I stand on the fact that, not your best look, Kevin.
If someone came to me and says, hey, Graham, I'm going to do exactly this and just get it done, I don't want anything else, I'm not going to give that person any more work, because as a business owner myself, you have to do everything. The hours that you put in running your own company is insurmountable. I mean, the amount of mental capacity that just gets taken up 24/7 just thinking about everything that could go wrong, everything you need to be doing, it's a lot. So you want an employee who at least shares in that.
I'm going to pause that. I said it in my original video, but I really do have a lot of sympathy for business owners. They're the ones who are taking risks, driving innovation, taking all the stress home with them that the average worker is not. They are really an integral and an important part of our economy and our society. Actually, since I was a kid, I wanted to be a business owner, if I'm being honest. And I think a lot of people that look at my channel think that maybe I'm anti-CEO, anti-business, anti-capitalism. I'm none of that. Let me be clear. As I got a little older and I got out into the workforce, I saw that there are good bosses like Graham, right? You look at Graham's team and he moved up that guy Jack on his team from basically the bottom to now Jack is one of the integral players on his podcast, right? Graham's a good CEO. But I discovered that when I went into the labor force, there were a lot of bad CEOs. And so kind of what I view my channel as is, look, we want to promote the good, but we will also want to call out the bad. And I actually think that that's one of the major reasons that Gen Z has a quiet quitting tendency or problem that the older generations don't want to address is, look, if I've got a toxic workplace, right, I'm going to be mentally checked out when I go there. I'm not absorbing your toxicity. I'm not coming here to feel like crap all day. Are you kidding me? I'm going to spend 40 hours a week every week feeling like crap because you as a CEO couldn't give a crap. I think that's why, and reading my comments too, a lot of people have said that. That's why they become quiet quitters, why they mentally check out from work.
An article came out saying that the Federal Reserve is trying to tighten the labor market. What that means is the Federal Reserve is literally trying to kill a lot of these job openings so that employers don't have to compete so hard, don't have to pay more, don't have to come up with all these great ideas to get new employees.
No, they're not. Oh my gosh, they're doing that to lower inflation. It's not some big conspiracy.
Stop. Oh man, what did I do? I made Graham mad, man.
Oh my gosh, they're doing that to lower inflation. I don't get it. It's not some big conspiracy here. Inflation is high, and in order to lower inflation, they raise interest rates. In raising interest rates, businesses have less money to spend, and in doing so, they give less money to their employees. They downsize, and in doing so, people spend less money. They start to conserve it, and that brings down inflation. It's not, the Fed's not raising interest rates so employers don't have to innovate. That's silly. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. That logic, you're just trying to bring down inflation.
Graham, let me just say, I love you, man. I watched your content in college. I've been a big fan for years, and I love what you do. It's crazy, man. It's a full circle moment. Somebody that I've been a fan of for so long directing to my content, but innovate was the wrong word to use. The point I'm trying to make is this. Well, all of this money printing happened during COVID. Okay? All these business owners are talking about how they doubled, tripled, quadrupled their net worth, right? And the Federal Reserve doesn't pump the brakes one time. They're just letting all this money come in. All these business owners, millionaires, billionaires are just getting wealthier, right? But then all of a sudden, when the opportunity comes for the middle class, the working class, to possibly start to see their salaries and wages increase, and all of a sudden the Fed steps in because there could be a wage price spiral, right? Where basically wages are increasing because companies have more money, but because they're paying their staff more, the prices of goods increase. And then that keeps happening, right? People demand more money because the prices are going up. I get it, right? They want to stop inflation. And so they looked at it and said, if the whole middle class, if their salaries start to go up, if their wages start to go up, that's going to increase the cost of everything. That could be runaway inflation. They're trying to tighten the labor market by increasing interest rates. So that way they can basically slow all of this down and try to bring inflation to a close. I understand that. But I have to look at it and go, why is it that they didn't pump the brakes one time when all of this money is getting printed so quickly, so many trillion, right? The millionaires get it's like, nothing to worry about, nothing to see about here. Oh, the middle class, now we're worried about inflation all of a sudden, right? When these guys could benefit. And I get it. I'm naive. I'm 26. I don't understand economics as well as somebody like Graham. But I have to look at it and go, why is it always the middle class that gets caught holding the bag? Why is it always the middle class that gets the raw side of the deal, the bad side of things? It feels like the same thing as 2008, where all these bankers make all these sketchy investments and all of a sudden the economy is about to collapse. But you know what? They made their money, but the banks are too big to fail and they're failing. So we need to go to the taxpayers, right? The middle class, the lower class, the taxpayers, we need them to bail out the banks, right? Because the banks, they made some spicy business deals, but now the middle class has to pay for that. And it feels like the same thing, man, right? We print all this money and everyone's quiet. It's okay when the millionaires and billionaires are getting, you know what I mean? The business owners, let them make their money. Middle class, look, we're worried about inflation now. You weren't worried about it when it was the business owners. It just feels so disingenuous that it's always the middle class that gets caught holding the bag. Why is that?
Gen Z grew up with the internet. We know that we can make 40, 50K a year flipping stuff. I know that I can go private label product right now and make 40K if I need to. I know that if I keep grinding on social media for the next 3 years like I've been doing right now, I'll be making 6 figures or more.
Good luck with that. A lot of people try it and they fail. It's very difficult to flip items like that successfully, make $100,000 a year in social media. Yes, you could do it. Absolutely. But very few people succeed. And it's not something where you just decide, I'm going to make $100,000 by posting on TikToks. It's very difficult, very strategic. And chances are, a lot of the people that made it on TikTok were working a full-time job in addition to working on TikTok for free, just so that maybe 1% of those people could then actually go on to create a living off of TikTok alone.
You're going to have to get used to me, Graham. I'm not going anywhere.
Now, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like. Let's see if we can get it discovered by the YouTube algorithm. Now, one thing I will say is that after I saw Graham's response, I actually reached out to his team and said, hey, I'd love to have a chat with Graham, something we could post on my channel and just talk about Gen Z economics. You know, not a gotcha, not some sort of debate, but rather talking to some of these great minds and saying, hey, you understand finance, you understand economics. How can Gen Z make it in today's world? Because things seem so different than sort of what our parents guided us for or prepared us for. So we'll see if Graham reaches out, but if not, no worries. Thank you guys for watching and have a good one.